14-year-old Leo had a secret. It wasn't a dark secret or a dangerous one. It was just a quiet, heavy shame that he carried in his chest every single day. His mother, Elena, was a street sweeper. Every morning, before the sun even thought about rising, Elena put on a bright, reflective orange vest. She grabbed her heavy wooden broom, and she walked the long, dirty avenues of the city. She swept away the broken glass, the crushed leaves, and the careless trash left behind by people who never looked her in the eye. Leo loved his mother. He knew she was kind. He knew she was hardworking. But in the cruel, unforgiving hallways of high school, he was deeply, terribly embarrassed by her. When his wealthy classmates complained about their parents not buying them the newest phones, Leo would just stare at his shoes. He never invited his friends over to his small, cramped apartment. And if he ever saw his mother working on his side of town, he would cross the street, pull his hood up, and pretend he didn't know the woman in the orange vest. He thought he was protecting himself. He didn't realize how he was breaking her heart. Leo's only escape from the heavy guilt was his violin. When he tucked the worn wooden instrument under his chin and drew the bow across the strings, he wasn't the poor boy with the street sweeper mother. He was a maestro. He was someone important. The music was his voice, and it was beautiful. One afternoon, his music teacher pulled him aside. The city's most prestigious conservatory was hosting a winter showcase. If Leo won first place, he would receive a full scholarship to the academy. It was his only chance at a real future. But there was a catch. The entry fee, the required formal suit, and the travel costs were more than Leo made in a year. That night, Leo sat at their tiny kitchen table and slid the application paper across to his mother. He told her he didn't want to do it. He lied and said he was tired of playing. He said the violin was just a silly hobby. Elena looked at the paper. Then she looked at her son's eyes. She saw right through the lie. She gently pushed the paper back toward him. "Don't you dare give up, Leo," she whispered. "I will handle the money. My daytime shifts are being extended next month. I'll be working late, but I promise you, you will play on that stage." The next few weeks were a blur. Elena left the apartment before dawn, and she didn't return until long after midnight. But as the weeks dragged on, Leo started to notice things. His mother wasn't just tired. She was fading. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes were hollow, and her hands, her poor, beautiful hands, they were cracked, red, and bleeding from the harsh winter wind and the rough broom handle. She would sit on the couch at 2 a.m., wrapping her fingers in cheap bandages, too exhausted to even eat. One freezing Tuesday night, a heavy rainstorm rolled into the city. Leo was lying in bed, listening to the rain hit the glass. He looked at the clock. It was 11:30 p.m. His mother's extended street sweeping shift was supposed to end at 10. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He threw on his jacket, grabbed an umbrella, and sneaked out into the rain. He walked to the end of her usual route. The streets were empty. The orange vest was nowhere to be seen. Panic started to rise in his chest. He started walking faster, asking the late-night vendors if they had seen her. Finally, an old man selling hot coffee pointed a trembling finger towards the towering glass-fronted corporate bank building at the center of the financial district. Leo walked up to the massive glass doors. The building was dark, except for the lobby, and there, through the rain-streaked glass, he saw her. She wasn't holding a broom. Elena was on her hands and knees on the cold, hard marble floor. She was wearing a janitor's uniform, scrubbing the massive lobby tiles with a rough brush and a bucket of soapy water. The daytime street sweeping hadn't been extended. She had taken a second job, a hidden, grueling night job, scrubbing the floors of the very people who walked past her on the street, without a second glance. Leo stood frozen in the rain. The cold water soaked through his jacket, but he couldn't feel it. He watched as his mother stopped scrubbing. She sat back on her heels, groaning softly, and reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small, crumpled, plastic-covered photograph. Even from outside, Leo knew what it was. It was a picture of him, holding his violin, smiling. Elena pressed the photo to her chest, closed her tired eyes, and took a deep, shaking breath before leaning back down to scrub the floor. She was breaking her own body, piece by piece, to buy him a suit and a stage. Leo didn't go inside. He turned around and walked all the way home in the rain, crying so hard he could barely breathe. When Elena finally came home at 2 a.m., soaking wet and shivering, Leo was awake. He didn't yell. He didn't confront her. He just walked up to her, took her cold, wet, bleeding hands in his, and held them against his cheeks. He didn't say a word, but the way he looked at her, it told her everything. The shame was gone. It was replaced by a fierce, unbreakable love. From that night on, everything changed. Leo didn't just practice the violin. He attacked it. He played until his fingers blistered. And then he played some more. He wasn't playing to escape his life anymore. He was playing to repay the woman who was scrubbing floors in the dark, so he could stand in the light. The night of the conservatory showcase arrived. The grand hall was filled with wealthy parents in expensive suits and elegant dresses. In the very back row, trying to hide in the shadows, sat Elena. She was wearing her only nice dress, an old faded blue one, and she kept her rough, bandaged hands hidden in her lap. When Leo walked onto the stage, he looked like a prince in his new black suit. The spotlight hit him. The grand hall went completely silent. But before he raised his violin to his chin, Leo walked to the microphone. He looked out at the sea of wealthy, important people. And then his eyes found the back row. People look at me. Leo's voice echoed through the quiet hall. And they see a prodigy. They see a boy in a nice suit, playing a beautiful instrument. But they don't see the woman who made this music possible. Elena gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "My mother is a street sweeper," Leo continued, his voice breaking but echoing with absolute pride. "And at night, she is a janitor. She has spent the last 2 months on her hands and knees, scrubbing marble floors until her fingers bled. Just so I could stand on this stage tonight. I used to be ashamed to look at her in public. But tonight, I want the whole world to look at her. This song is for the woman with the calloused hands, who swept the streets and scrubbed the floors, so her son could reach the stars." The silence in the hall was deafening, and then a single person in the front row stood up and started to clap. Then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire grand hall was on its feet, weeping and cheering in a thunderous standing ovation. Leo turned to his mother. Elena was sobbing, no longer hiding her scarred, beautiful hands. She stood up, bathed in the warm light of the stage, looking prouder than any queen in the world. Leo raised his violin. He closed his eyes, and he played. It was the most beautiful, heartbreaking, triumphant music anyone in that room had ever heard. We live in a world that judges people by their clothes, their cars, and their titles. But true nobility isn't found in a corner office or a grand house. True nobility is found in the quiet, unseen sacrifices made by those who love us. So the next time you see someone doing the hard, dirty, invisible work of the world, don't look away. Don't judge, because you never know whose world they are holding up on their tired shoulders. Never be ashamed of the hands that raised you. Good night, Leo. Good night, Elena. And good night to the quiet heroes of the world.